Hello students, welcome to the online learning session for business studies. This is our lecture 1 in respect to a new chapter, that is chapter 2, Principles of Management. What are the topics in this chapter? What is this chapter about? So to know all that, let's have a quick look onto the learning objectives. Firstly, the meaning of management principles, the nature of management principles, and the significance of management principles. Fayol's 14 principle and the scientific management principles of Taylor. Now, what are those? What were the principles of management given by Fayol? What were the principles of scientific management given by Taylor? That we will learn as and when the topic comes. After we read these, we'll learn about the principles also, we'll learn about the techniques also. And at last, we will compare the work of Fayol and Taylor. Okay? So without any delay, let us start with the first topic. What is a principle? What is a principle? A principle is a fundamental statement. Statement of what? Statement of truth. And what does this statement provides us? It provides us guidance of thought and guidance of action. In case we are confused with respect to a particular topic, we can refer to these principles. Because what are principles? These are statements of truth that may guide us, that may guide our action, that may guide our thought. And with these principles, we may able to work further. Clear? Meaning of principle. What is principle? Principle is a fundamental statement of truth. Very simple. Now, the next thing what you can see is about the principles of management. So, we have understood what a principle is. A principle is a truth statement which will guide us, which will help us when we are confused related to our thoughts, related to our actions. Simple. Now, what are principles of management? See, principles of management are broad and general guidelines. So, these are also guidelines for managerial decision making and behavior. That means while following the process of management, while making any kind of managerial decisions, we may take help of these principles of management. Why? Because the principles of management are guidelines, broad and general guidelines which help us in any kind of decision making. Okay? Simple. Now, management principles are not as rigid as the principles of pure science. We have already discussed this while we were discussing the features of management. Like in science, we had very rigid principles that A plus B will always be equal to C. But we learned that in management, the principles of management are not so rigid. Why they are not rigid? Because over here we deal with human, we deal with individuals, and every individual is different from one another. Their demands are different, their behavior is different, the way of applying their creativity is also different. So over here, if we have some rigid and strict principles like those of science, it would be very difficult to operate. Okay? Understood about the principles of management? They are nothing but they are the guidelines. The guidelines or the rules that help us while we are following the process of management, while we are making any managerial decisions and behavior. Simple? Okay. Now coming into the nature of principles of management. First one, universal applicability. Now, what is universal applicability? It means that these management principles can be applied to all types of organizations, to all types of business, NGOs, small organizations, large organizations, private sector organizations, whatever it is, it can be applied everywhere, and that is why it says it has a universal applicability. Clear? Okay. The next is general guidelines. Now, why general guidelines? Because they guide us in the difficult situations, that how to proceed, how to carry on with the management work. But don't get confused that they provide us with a ready-made solution. No, management principle can never provide us with a ready-made solution. Why? Because the environment is changing, the economy is changing, right? So if our external factors are not same every time, then how can we apply these guidelines with a ready-made solution? That if in situation A I apply a particular guideline, it will give a different result. If I apply the same principle in situation B, it will give a different result. Why? Because the situations are different. Okay, so the management principles are just the guidelines, just a framework guiding us how to work. Okay, we can make changes in that, we can make alterations in that according to the situation, according to the need of the time. Don't think that management principles are as scientific principles, that A plus B will always be equal to C, or the law of gravity is applicable everywhere, whether you follow it in India or you follow it in America, it is just the same. No, this does not happen with the managerial principles. Okay, now the next one, formed by practice and experimentation. So how are these managerial principles formed? These are developed by the research work of the managers. The managers, they operate in various organizations, they do certain researches, and after that, through these experimentations and these repeated research work, these managerial principles are formed. Next is flexible. Flexible is very simple to understand. Why flexible? Because as in management, we deal with the human factors, we deal with individuals, so these managerial principles can be changed or modified by the managers, right? See, one line is written, man-made principles. These principles are made by man only. They see their they do certain researches, they see how is the trend going, and after that they make a principle of management. Is it scientific? Is it rigid that everywhere it will be the same, it will give the same results? No, human factor is involved, it can never happen. So it is flexible, it has to change according to the change in situations or as per the need and demand of the situation, right? Next, mainly behavioral. Why behavioral? Because it has the human behavior involved. It relates with the behavior of human, it relates with the behavior of individuals. Therefore, they are mainly behavioral in nature, right? Moving on to the 6th and 7th point. The 6th point says cause and effect relationship. Now, these managerial principles establishes cause and effect relationship. That means if I apply a particular principle of management in a particular situation, what effect it will have, what result it will give. Okay, so that they can be used in a similar situation. Suppose situation A is same as situation B. So I have seen that if I apply a particular management principle in situation A, it worked out great. There are chances if I apply the same in situation B, because situation B and situation A are same. So if I apply the same principle in situation B, it might work out well. But it is not always that applying the same managerial principle will give me good results. No. Why? Again the same point. Involvement of human factor. Right? Number 7, contingent. Contingent, why? Because their applicability depends upon a prevailing situation at a particular point of time. What is the particular point of time? What types of managerial principles that particular situation is demanding? On the basis of that, we are supposed to put these managerial principles. Okay? So that was all about the managerial principles nature. There are 7 important natures of managerial principles. Now let's move to the next topic, that is significance of principles of management. Providing managers with useful insights into reality. What does that mean? It means that the principles of management provide the managers a glimpse of the situations of the real world. Right? Now, what does this mean? It means that the managers will be able to learn from the mistakes made by some other managers and not repeat them, thereby conserve their time and solving the same problems quickly. Clear? Let's see what's written here. The management principle guides the managers to take the right decisions at the right time by improving their knowledge, their ability, and understanding of various managerial situations and circumstances. That means of the outside world, of the real world. Clear? Whatever situations are happening in the real world, these management principles previously makes the managers aware that if this thing happen, you can be ready with such and such things, thereby enabling them to take the right decisions at the right time. Okay? Now the second point. The second point says optimum utilization of resources and effective administration. Now let's understand one by one optimum utilization resources. Let's begin with this. Now the resources which the organizations have, they are limited, isn't it? And therefore every organization should use their resources in the optimum way, in the best possible way, right? And what about the effective administration? Effective administration means that we use the administration, we use the power provided to us in a better way. How can we use it in a better way? We have to remove any personal prejudice and we have to adopt an objective approach. Objective approach means we should use our power, we should use our administration towards achievement or fulfillment of our organizational goal. Okay? Actually, the effective administration is very essential. Why? Because if we use the administration in a better way, we can use our power with the best of the ability, right? Then that time any decisions taken will be free from any kind of biasness, right? That is optimum utilization of resources and effective administration. Next point is scientific decision. Now, any decisions which we make on the basis of our management principles, they have to be more realistic, they have to be more balanced, and they should be free from any kind of personal biasness. Clear? Next, meeting the changing environmental requirements. What does this mean? It means that whatever general guidelines we follow, whatever principles of management we follow, we have understood that we can change it, we can modify it as per our need. So these management principles, they help us to implement any kind of changes that happen in our environment. thereby making the organization more dynamic and more effective. The management principles are not rigid, they are not fixed, they can be changed, and as they can be changed, they provide a more better vision to the organization, because if we work in a dynamic environment, if we work in a flexible environment, we can work in a more better way. Okay? Point number 5. Point number 5 says fulfilling social responsibility. Now, principles of management not only help in achieving the organizational goals, but they also help in the fulfillment of social responsibilities. Okay? And the last one is management, training, education and research. Now, what is the meaning of this? It means that the management principles are helpful in the areas in which the future managers can be trained, in which they can be provided with an education. Moreover, they also provide basis for future research. So what do we understand from this point? It means that our management principles help in the training of managers, in providing education to the managers, both the existing managers as well as the future managers, right? And they also provide us scope for any kind of future researches, right? So that was all about the significance of principles of management. Why is it so important? Why it should be in use? Okay. Next comes discussion about the Fayol's principle of management. Now this person, Henry Fayol, he developed these 14 principles of management. So before we go into those 14 principles of management, let us have a brief introduction about him. He got a degree in the mining engineering and then he joined the French mining company in 1860 as an engineer. Then he rose to the position of the managing director in this should be 1880. Okay. Now when the company was on the verge of bankruptcy, what did this person do? He accepted the challenge, and by using his intelligence, using his administrative experience, he turned the fortune of the company. That means from the verge of bankruptcy, he brought the company to great heights. And that is why he is called as the father of general management, because he applied certain managerial principles, certain managerial techniques, and with those managerial principles or managerial techniques, he was able to change the situation of the company. And so for his contribution, we refer him to as the father of general management. Now let's have a look onto the principles developed by him. In this lecture, we will be discussing only the first 5 principles given by him. The next principles will be covered in the next lecture. So let's start with division of work. Now understand. First we'll understand and then we will read the text. Division of work means that similar type of work is divided into small groups, and the person who is efficient in those kinds of group, to that person that particular job is allotted. Clear? Simple. I repeat, any kind of work, if it's a long work, it is divided into small tasks or small jobs, and those individual tasks or individual jobs, they are performed by the experts or the person who knows how to do that job. Clear? This is called as the division of work. Now why is division of work so important? Because if I perform a work by an expert, definitely it will bring efficiency in my organization. It will increase the productivity. Unnecessary wastage or unnecessary movements will be avoided. For example, if you go in a bank, you have seen how a bank works. One person totally given the task of operating with the cash. One person manages or looks after the credit, loans and everything. One person is there, for example, to give away all the forms that we fill in bank, isn't it? So the whole work of the bank is divided into small parts, and those small parts are actually performed by individual who are expert in it, or by a trained individual who is taught how to do those works. And why is it important? Because it brings efficiency, specialization, increased productivity and unnecessary wastage and movement. Now, what is the meaning of unnecessary wastage and movements? If an unexperienced person or an untrained person, he will not know how to do a particular work, what will he do? Firstly, he will waste the resources given to him. Secondly, he will do unnecessary movements. Unnecessary movements as in moving from here to there, not doing anything, wasting his energy, wasting his time. But if at the same time an expert comes in, he exactly knows what is his work, what should he do, right? Thereby restricting his own movement and increasing the productivity of the organization, right? Okay. The next one says authority and responsibility. Now, what is authority and responsibility? A brief explanation I had given to you while we were doing the levels of management. Remember, while we were discussing the levels of management, one figure came up, a triangle came up. Authority was coming down, responsibility was increasing, isn't it? That time, what did I say you? I told you that authority means power to take decisions, and responsibility means the obligation to complete the job on time. So understand that assigned authority and responsibility should be hand in hand. It's not that one should be given only the authority and he has been given no responsibility. Then what will happen? It will result in the unfair use of the power, unfair use of the authority, right? And suppose if a person has been given only the responsibility and no authority, what will he do? He may not be able to discharge his work properly because he is having no power. I'll explain this with you with an example. For instance, there is a worker. He has been given the work of producing, say, 50 bulbs, right? Now, responsibility has been given that you have to manufacture or you have to produce 50 bulbs. Okay? No power has been given to him. He has been given no authority. As a result of that, what will happen? In case he feels the shortage of raw materials, in case he feels the shortage of any laborers, will he be able to purchase it? No, that worker, that laborer won't be able to purchase it. Why? Because he is not having the power. As a result of which, he may not be able to fulfill his responsibility also. Right? So, giving of responsibility and giving of authority is important. Now, take the other side. Only authority is given and no responsibility. Only power is given. So, what will that person feel? That person will feel like the king of the world. It will make him feel the expert in everything. That will make his behavior also very arrogant, and he may use his power in a wrong way. Right? So, we conclude by this that authority and responsibility should go hand in hand. There should be involvement of authority, there should be involvement of responsibility also. Right? Next principle. Next principle says discipline. Discipline means following the organizational rules. Now, everyone should follow the organizational rule, whether he is the supervisor, whether he is the subordinate. Okay, let's see what's written here. The discipline requires good supervisors at all levels, clear and fair agreements, judicious application of penalties. Let's understand the last point. What is the last point saying? Suppose if a worker has done a mistake and at the same time a superior has done a mistake, both are liable for the same penalty, because we need to follow the principle of discipline. The principle of discipline says that everything should be as per the rules. No biasness should be there in the organization, right? Point number 4, or we can say principle number 4. As the name suggests, unity of command. Unity of command says that every subordinate, who is the subordinate? The person at the lower level. And who is the superior? The person at the higher level, right? So every subordinate should receive orders from one superior only. If he receives order from more than one superior, he will be confused. Okay, I have a figure in front of me. Let me zoom it out so that you see. Unity of command. This should be followed. What we can see? One subordinate receiving orders from one superior only. Now, if a subordinate receives multiple orders from different superiors, he will get confused and there will be chaos in the organization. Understood this? Very simple. One superior will give order to one subordinate only. Okay? Next is unity of direction. Unity of direction means that all the activities in an organization should be in one direction. And what is that one direction? It is the achievement of organizational goals. No other objectives, no other goals should be there in the mind of the employees. See, again I have a figure to explain this. See, all the arrows here, they are in the same direction of this bigger arrow. That means take these arrows as the individuals, small arrows. So all these small arrows are working towards the achievement of the organizational goals. In this one, all of them are following the same direction, so there is a unity of direction principle is being followed. Now let's see the next arrow. Over here what we can see? Some of them are following, but some of them are not following. So can we say unity of direction is being followed over here? No. Over here, through this figure, we can say that there is a lack of unity of direction. And over here, there is presence of unity of direction. What is unity of direction? I repeat, same objective under one plan. This ensures unity of action and coordination. Everyone should work towards the achievement of organizational goals, right? So that is all about the principles of management. I told you we'll be discussing only 5. The remaining we'll be discussing in the next lecture. So that is all for today. We'll meet you in the next video. Thank you.